welcome to Phails. My name is Philip, and today I'm really excited to have my guest here with me, James McCrae. Wave at everybody. Author, teacher, and meme poet. I want to start with the beginning.
Yes.
Where were you born?
Redwood Falls, Minnesota.
You were born in Redwood Falls, Minnesota. Is that a big town, a little town?
No. A few thousand people.
Yeah.
Few thousand people.
Y'all only had a couple Dairy Queens?
We had one Dairy Queen and we had one Dairy King.
No way.
Small little, mom and pop shop spot called Dairy King.
Oh my God.
Shout out Dairy King.
Shout out. So you were born, how long were you there?
I was in that town until I graduated high school.
Okay. So your
18
formative
years.
Your formative years.
Correct. Well, yeah, formative in terms of childhood, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
When I think a primary conditioning occurs in the home, and
sure.
And that was your incubator.
Yes, small little town on the Minnesota prairie, surrounded by cornfields, adjacent to a Native American reservation, cold winters, wholesome people, and yeah.
You were how many brothers and sisters?
I have an older sister and a younger sister.
So you were the middle kiddo.
Correct.
How, is the spread normal, or was one of them like 12 years apart from the rest of them?
Older sister's 2 years older, younger sister's 3 or 4 years younger.
So there was like having kiddos part of your family's time, and then and y'all are all kind of grouped together.
More or less, yeah.
And you're the middle kid.
Yep.
What is the dynamic of what's your older sister and then younger sister? Yeah. So you're it's a sandwich and a little dude in the middle. What was your older sister like?
My older sister, wow. I mean, she was my older sister, she
still is.
She is. But I mean, when I'm younger, like
Oh yeah,
when you're young, you have this older, so like they're ahead of you.
Now she's like a peer.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
exactly.
She was huge when you were a kid.
Yeah, so she would for example, she would like find out about music and things like that before I would.
Did you always like the things that she found and look up to her?
Not necessarily, but there were certain things that would trickle down. Mm-hmm. Like I actually remember those, I guess they were like CD clubs where you would like subscribe to like some service.
Columbia,
and you'd get, Columbia CD clubs.
Yes.
So she would have that. So, this would be like the 90s. And, so like even things like she would like have like hip hop. And there was not a lot of hip hop around me in the small town in Minnesota, but she had some hip hop CDs. So I used to like take her Tupac.
Oh my goodness.
Things like that.
Yeah.
So there was some good music that I inherited from her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you think of birth order stuff, I think of like the oldest is like type A and all put together. And was it kind of like that? Was she like good in school? She always like did what she was told.
I don't know about that. I think she was a little rebellious. I think but she, I think there is a certain like older child responsibility thing that holds true, and for sure. And
you're in the middle.
Yeah.
Did you embody that like middle child? What is it?
So.
The peacekeeper?
Mediator.
Yes.
I think I'm very much a mediator, and I'm really good at seeing both sides, and like, I guess they say that middle children are ignored or neglected or whatever, like that's kind of the stereotype,
because you have the baby and then
correct,
yeah,
and you're just kind of in between. And I guess that never bothered me. I don't need a lot of attention.
Were you ignored?
No, I wouldn't say I was ignored at all, but there's still just like that middle child syndrome, where there's just like you're kind of in between, right?
Yeah.
But no, I never bothered. I love being an only child. I think you get a good balanced perspective.
Did you say I love being an only child?
Middle child.
A middle child.
Yeah, because you can be the little brother, you can be the older brother, and I think there's a good balance there.
You get some best of both worlds.
I think so.
And then the baby of the family, your younger sister, was she so babies tend to get away with everything. The parents are like, we've already done this 2 times and we're kind of phoning it in.
Yeah.
And they also give them a lot of love and support.
Totally. Yeah. My little sister, Emily, I always just thought she was funny. Mm-hmm. She was clever and funny and just kind of, mischievous in a cute way. Mm-hmm. Really clever.
Yeah. Who was there a kind of a black sheep of the 3 of y'all?
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, I feel like I'm a little bit the black sheep, but not even like, just because I was like, not even that different, but like I was the only one that left Minnesota. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I was always a little different, or like marched to the beat of my own drummer. Yeah. But I never, not in a bad way, not in a way that I felt excluded.
Right.
Yeah.
Did y'all get in trouble? Did you get in trouble in school or around town?
I got into some trouble. Yeah. Let's see.
Tell me about it, James.
I got into some trouble. Let's see. When did I get into trouble? Like, I got caught up in some stuff.
Okay, you're being really. What kind of stuff did you get caught up in?
Nothing too bad.
I had one guest tell me about counterfeiting money, so I think you're gonna be good.
Well, there was. So that's funny you said that, because I didn't counterfeit any money, but I will say I briefly was. I told you I grew up adjacent to a Native American community.
Yes.
So my high school was integrated with Native Americans from the Dakota tradition. Mm-hmm. It was called the Lower Sioux Native Reservation.
Okay.
And so I was friends with some of the kids from that community. And I was even, me and my other friend, Josh, were initiated into essentially what was a Native American gang.
Whoa. You were in a Native American gang?
Technically, yes. It wasn't like, I was like 13, 14.
Yeah, that's early to get in gang life.
So it wasn't like serious gang activity. I don't know what all was going on.
But there was older gang members. Y'all were just the youngest of the gang members.
I don't think it was a super serious gang, but they did call themselves a gang.
Did you? What was the name of the Native Americans there? Did you say Sioux?
Yeah.
And then you said super serious?
They're the Dakota Sioux.
A pun there.
Oh yeah. No.
It wasn't a Sioux per serious gang.
Personally, I'm hesitant to use the word Sioux. That is what they're labeled. Okay. The word Sioux is a French word that actually, I believe it actually means snake. Oof. So it was a derogatory
Let's not do that.
French word. Yeah. And that is the name that was assigned to them. Mm-hmm. So I'm hesitant to use it, but so I say the Dakota.
My bad on that pun.
No, it's not your bad. It's the culture's bad.
Yeah. Tell me more about this gang. Did y'all have a gang sign?
I don't remember. I believe that I was given a bandana to wear out of my back pocket.
Nice. What color was the bandana?
I think it was red.
Red bandana.
I think it was red.
How'd you get in? Did they have to beat you up?
Well, it's funny so they did beat kids up to get in. And I remember, so we used to hang out at the roller skating rink.
I did too. Odyssey. Yeah. What was the name of your
Candy Cane Lanes.
You got initiated into a gang at Candy Cane Lanes.
Well, that's where I met these kids. Yeah. That was the hangout spot when I was 13, 14 was Candy Cane Lane Skate Center or whatever. Yeah. And there were, I remember seeing some kids getting beat into the gang. Mm-hmm. I don't think it was super serious, but they maybe throw some punches and kick some kids a little bit.
That would hurt.
So I believe they said you could get your way. You could get beat into the gang, mm-hmm. or you could buy your way into the gang.
Ooh, so you just gave him some money.
What happened was, it's actually funny. My father was a mailman.
Okay.
He was a post office worker. Okay. So he had these mailman clothes, and one of these kids that was getting us into the gang was over at my house. Mm-hmm. And he was interested in my dad's postal worker attire. He thought it was cool. He thought it was like, where would you get that? So what I actually did was I swiped like a couple of my dad's postal worker outfits. Mm-hmm. and I gave them to this kid in exchange for membership into the gang.
Yeah.
True story.
You went postal, literally.
Good one.
So you got into the gang by giving him your dad's work uniform.
Accurate.
Oh
Yes.
my God. So did you ever do any dirt in this gang? What happened?
No, wait. What didn't last long. All that happened was there was a check forgery.
Oh my God.
Thing where, like, I don't know, my friend had a check, and then this native kid had this idea of like forging it into a higher number and then cashing it. Uh-huh. So he did that.
Oh my God.
I mean, we got like maybe $100 max out
Instead
of this.
of $10.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And we got caught, and I had to have a little bit of community service just for being an accomplice in this.
Oh, so it went through the legal process.
Yeah, I mean, I had some community service, nothing too major, but that was the beginning and the end of my gang activity.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I think I was 13, 14.
What'd you do for community service?
I don't even remember. Mowed lawns, maybe.
Yeah, mowed lawns.
Something like that. Nothing too crazy.
Okay, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I did not expect to hear that you were initiated in a Native American gang.
Yeah, you asked me what kind of trouble I got into as a kid, and that's one of the...
That's good stuff.
That's one of the things that came up.
That's good stuff. Any other trouble? So when you were young, were you like doing drugs and that type of stuff, or drinking or any of that?
No. There was no, my parents didn't drink because they came from, both of their parents were alcoholics. Mm-hmm. So there's no alcohol in my house growing up. So I wasn't really exposed to it. Mm-hmm. So I didn't start drinking until I was like a senior in high school.
Okay.
So yeah, eventually I got into it, but not
early,
not younger than that.
No. Did you think of yourself as a good kid, or did you think of yourself as a bad kid growing up?
Probably a good kid. You know, we went to church. I went to a private Christian school for part of my elementary school. Mm-hmm. So not that I was like the most devout Christian or anything like that, or the perfect student. Yeah. But in general, I was probably a good kid.
Yeah. I like it.
Besides the whole gang activity that I
yeah. From Candy Cane Lane.
Correct.
Springs
it's trouble.
Gang member activity. Okay. So your dad was a postal worker.
Yeah.
What would your mom do?
She was a caretaker for mentally disabled people.
So both of your parents worked full time, sounds like.
My mom did not work full time, but she worked.
Were you, I mean, that question for me lends me to a visualization of what it was like. You get off of school, are you like a latchkey kid and no one's at your house, or is your mom always there? Does someone greet you when you get out of school?
I'm sure someone would greet us. I don't remember it completely, but they were around.
I was a latchkey kid. I would around. Go, but no one was home when I got there, but someone was home when you got home.
For sure.
I
think so. I think my mom often worked overnight, so she would go to these homes and sleep.
Whoa.
Just to, these homes with mentally disabled people, they need people just to be there 24/7. Mm-hmm. So even if they're sleeping, they need someone to be there just to make sure everything's okay. Yeah. So often she would work overnights, so she would be home during the day.
Cool.
Yeah.
And what did discipline look like in your house? Like, who did it?
Discipline.
Mom or dad or both?
I mean, my parents weren't extreme disciplinarians. I think my mom would give us more. She would give us more like instruction. Mm-hmm. She would give us good. She might instruct us in certain ways. Yeah. And maybe my dad was a disciplinarian, but that wasn't, whatever.
Did you get spanked?
Yeah, a little bit.
You got spanked?
I guess so.
With like a belt or like a...
I think it was just maybe like a hand.
A hand.
Ugh. Nothing crazy.
Yeah.
Nothing crazy.
But not a lot.
Nope. And, get grounded once in a while. I remember once or twice. I can't believe people actually do this. It sounds like a folklore, but like I got my mouth washed out with soap.
You got literally, that's like something you would say to your kids you're going to do if they cuss. You were cussing?
Well, no, I actually think I remember this now. We had guests, so like it wasn't just.
This was in front of people?
No. But like what it was, I think I called my sister a name in front of guests.
Like a B word?
No, yes, it was a B word. I'm not kidding. I think I called her a butthead.
Oh, okay.
I was little. I was little.
I was thinking.
So I actually got my mouth washed out with soap, and I think she gave me a choice. You can get a spanking or get your mouth washed out with soap, and I thought it'd be funny and completely harmless to get my mouth washed out with soap.
Was it?
So I chose that. Yeah, it's nothing.
It's nothing.
I mean, it was dumb. It was just. Okay. It's over.
You chose wisely.
Yeah, I did.
Oh man. So dad was the disciplinarian. Mom was more like give insights or give like
generally
communication.
Generally speaking.
Yeah. Did who were they both? What did nurturance look like? What did like support look like in your household?
I mean, my parents were both very loving. Mm-hmm. They still are.
They're still together?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't even know. Like, were
you in a sport or what was your extracurriculars or what did you do? Where did your attention go?
Yeah. So let's see. I mean, I played basketball, middle school, high school.
Was there anything that they were like invested in your growth towards?
Not necessarily. They gave us freedom to kind of become who we were. And this is part of like what I perceive as the benefits of growing up in a really small town. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a lot of pressure to, get into the right schools. Like, a lot of people there don't go to college, or if they do, it's the community college a couple towns over that it's really easy to get into. So there wasn't a lot of pressure to get good grades and do this and do that. It was just kind of honestly, it's a kind of place where being a good person, matters more. Like just being a good person, they call it Minnesota nice. It is a place that cultivates, I think, good people, and there's not a lot of pressure or competition as there are in other places that you could grow up. So there wasn't a lot of that. I mean, so we had guidance and we had support and love, but there wasn't any pressure to do any particular things. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds nice.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it reminds me of what you were saying about like the action and the busyness and the doing. It seemed like you were insulated from that in some respect.
I think so.
In your formative years, in your childhood.
Yeah. So like I think I did cultivate like a lot of like imagination, especially when I was younger. I would just go outside and just roam around. Me and my friends would roam around the fields. Like we had these railroad tracks outside of our house, and we would just wander down the railroad tracks and like pack a lunch and just wander down the railroad tracks and like imagine these elaborate adventures that we were having.
Yeah.
So a lot of space, both for my body and my mind, just to wander.
Yeah, I like it. Mm-hmm. For some reason, I thought of Stand By Me, that movie where the kids are like going down a railroad track. Or when I was a kid, we went and played at this railroad trestle and we would jump off into this body of water.
Oh yeah. We had a waterfall.
Oh yeah.
That we would jump off the waterfall into the lake below.
Yeah. So in your house, I imagine part of the human condition is like disagreements. And I imagine your parents got into disagreements from time to time. How did they navigate that with respect to the kiddos? Was it in front of them, or was it they would go behind closed doors? Or how did they navigate conflict? Your folks.
It's a good question. I don't recall a lot of conflict growing up. I really don't.
Yeah.
They were sweet, very God-fearing folks, very, they still, I don't even think they go to church anymore, but.
Well, God wouldn't stop people from having conflict.
No, but I'm just saying at that time they were, I would say it was a bit of a, no, I wouldn't say a strict, but it was very much a religious house growing up.
What does that mean? What is a religious house? I've never been in that. So I wonder, like, how does that impact you? Was it like, what did you do on a daily basis that was religious?
Well, on a daily basis, I don't know, but we would go to church every week. Mm-hmm. And I went to youth groups like once a week.
On Wednesdays or something? Yeah.
Yeah. And that was a lot of my social life, even as a kid. It was like my church youth group friends.
That was your community.
It was one of them.
Yeah.
It wasn't my community, but it was definitely one of them.
Mm-hmm. Were they like quoting scriptures at
I would
dinner
say
table?
A little bit. I would say so. I don't recall. It wasn't super heavy-handed, but there was definitely a presence of church. And so for me, like I feel like there was a, like I'm not a religious person anymore, but I am grateful for that experience because from a very young age, I felt like I had a personal relationship with God or spirit.
Yeah.
So there was always a solid foundation for spirituality, and I felt like God was accessible and God was a friend. It wasn't like there were, and through things like prayer, I would have a direct line to God to inquire, speaking of this intuition, and listening.
Heck yeah.
I think prayer was my first exposure to that because I felt like there was an entity that we call God that you could access with your thoughts.
Yeah.
And for a kid to believe that is, it's an incredible gift, I feel, to have that relationship.
Yeah.
And obviously there's religion, I think, it distorts this idea of God in so many ways.
Yeah.
But just that fundamental truth of having access to this divine insight was definitely a good influence.
Yeah. When you still your mind as a kid, the voice that would come as inspiration was in the form of God.
It is. And I think God and intuition are the same thing. And when you think about it, because it's like you're praying to God, you're asking God a question and then you receive an answer. That's the same thing as tuning into your intuition and receiving an answer. I think they're different ways of saying the same thing.
Yeah. I'm struck by the beginning where you said your folks were God-fearing people. And it seems like that's very antithetical or separate from everything else you said. It's like we fear God.
Well, that's like a term.
I know it's a term, but it's there because it would have people act in a certain way. It would have them walk the straight and narrow.
Correct.
Right?
I think that might be a quote in the Bible or something, or the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. So that this is just like a term that's used in the Christian paradigm, is this fear of God. And I don't think it means a literal fear, like I'm afraid of God.
It wasn't hell-centric.
It means respect. It means I have a healthy respect for the sacred.
Yeah.
And like there is a power beyond me. So I'm just going to respect that power and do what I can to honor that power.
Heck yeah. So growing up, there wasn't a lot of like arguing. Your parents didn't argue in front of you. They didn't raise their voices or
very little. Nothing that made an impression.
So when you think of your childhood, do you ever do you have a narrative of any kind of abuse or emotional abuse or physical abuse, anything like that?
No.
None.
No. I mean, you could say some, the religious programming can have for many people that ends up being traumatizing.
Yeah.
But it was never super, I think I just never took it as seriously as maybe some people do, where it traumatized me. I was just kind of going along with it and people talking about hell, but I never got caught up in I never took it so literally, where it like scarred me. Right. You know what I mean? So,
I do.
So I'm blessed. We weren't privileged in many ways, but I was privileged in terms of the love that I had around me, and definitely kind of got through childhood without the trauma that so many do experience.
Yeah. When you think of like watershed moments from 0 to senior in high school, living in that small town. What are they? Do you have any memories that were like after this? I mean, in some ways we're changed by every moment, but there's some moments that were more impactful than others.
Well, in terms of the path that I'm on now, I started writing poetry when I was like 13, 14.
Yeah. What inspired that? Well, how did that begin?
Well, I was homeschooled for a couple of years.
Okay.
In like the middle school. So I had a lot of freedom around me, you know, and freedom of thought, because it wasn't even we didn't have a strict curriculum. I mean, we certainly had things to do, but we had a lot of freedom, and my mom had a lot of books in the house. So I used to just kind of find some of her books and read them, and some of them were poetry. So there was like some classic poetry that I would read. My first favorite was Edgar Allan Poe, because he rhymes and it's kind of cool imagery. So I think it's an easy in. So that was my in for poetry, and I started writing poetry. Yeah, shortly after I started reading it, and then I kind of never stopped. Like I remember having just in high school just notebooks full of poetry.
Really? Mm-hmm. So having that stay-at-home dad, it's not that at-home learning. What are they called again? Homeschooling, and having time and access to wonderful books. Yeah, brought inspiration to write and to mirror what you saw Edgar Allan Poe do.
Absolutely.
Dude, do you remember your first poem?
I remember what it was. Yeah, I remember what it was. I think it was something about showing love. I wrote it for the youth group that I was part of.
Yes.
Like we did some youth group trip.
Do you have it somewhere?
No.
Oh my God. Tell me about it.
I doubt it.
You wrote it for a youth group trip?
Yeah, I just wrote it for, yes. And during this youth group trip, they kept saying like, show some love, show some love. That was like a phrase that they were using. So I wrote a poem called Show Some Love.
Aww.
And you know what's funny is I remember the last two lines from that poem that I wrote when I was like 13, 14. My poems would rhyme at the time.
Yeah.
So the last two lines of this poem, the first poem I ever wrote, go, "You can have the presence of a beautiful snow white dove if all you do and nothing more is show someone some love."
Yeah. Love that.
Right. And then my second poem was about the Civil War.
What you looking for?
Because for some reason I was into the Civil War as a kid. Yeah. So I wrote a poem about the Civil War.
You looking for your drink?
Oh yeah. My water's right here.
Let's both drink. Yeah. That is awesome. So one moment was discovering your lifelong expression of poetry. Another moment was joining a gang. Yes. We've already gone over that one.
Yes.
Is there a tertiary experience that you had in there that was impactful for you?
Nothing's coming up.
How did you identify through that time? Like what kind of, when I was a kid, I was kind of a teenage angsty dude. I had a denim jacket that I'd write like heavy metal bands on. Yeah. And I was kind of just like a little punk. Like when you think of the archetype or the little James, how did you identify yourself? How did you define yourself during that time?
Which age?
Ooh.
Because
whichever one comes to mind.
Yeah. I mean, I was, I was creative. I was kind of a class clown.
Okay.
So I was kind of a jokester.
Yeah.
Once I was writing poetry, I was able to like really explore my inner world, which, and really just, cultivate that sensitivity in myself. So I guess I was kind of a sensitive writer.
Kind of like a beatnik type of vibe.
Yeah. I mean, eventually once I discovered them.
Yeah.
I was into hip hop. I was into basketball.
Yeah.
So, I thought I was cool. I mean, I was always able to be friends with anyone.
Yeah.
So I never really had
You were a social chameleon of sorts?
Yeah. Yep. Kind of, after homeschooling, I went back to the public school in Redwood Falls and would just jump around from, different cliques and able to just, kind of fit in wherever. So much so that I ended up being student council president.
What?
Yeah. My senior year.
Get out.
Yeah. And that was just because I thought it'd be really fun to run for president and campaign and make, give speeches and make campaign posters.
What did you promise those kids?
I don't know, but you know what I did? I was kind of a class clown and, it's like, how do you inspire kids to vote for you? So one thing I did once a week, they would let the people running for president go onto the school's PA system and like make an announcement to speak to the the constituents.
What did you do?
So I brought in a boombox, and I'm like, I'm gonna play them some music. So like I did this twice, so 2 different songs, and the hit song. This was like the late '90s. Okay. So I remember Britney Spears, "Oops, I Did It Again."
Okay.
And Cisco, "The Thong Song."
Oh my God.
And I brought this into the office, and I blasted it over the school.
I could just see like the principal running and be like, "No,
they let me do it.
They let you play the thong."
They let me play the whole song. So like that helped the kids vote for me for sure.
That thong, 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 thong. Oh my God. Okay. I think this is a great time to break free of your kind of high school, middle school, elementary school, James.
Yeah.
And so you were saying earlier, most folks would go to the community college a couple towns over. Is that what you did?
Well, initially I did. You know what? I was into theater my senior year. I was in some plays, and I really got the idea of moving to New York City to pursue acting, or just to whatever I was painting, I was writing, and I thought New York City was where I wanted to be, because by then I had discovered the Beatniks, and Allen Ginsberg and Jack Kerouac, and they all lived in New York, and all these cool artists, that I read about lived in New York. So I wanted to move to New York City right out of high school.
Yeah.
And I planned to, and my plans got thwarted. This was my second brush with the law. Oh, listen, first time smoking pot.
Oh my God.
First time smoking pot.
Probably not the last, y'all.
I'm high right now.
No.
I'm sorry.
You're fine.
I know
you can say all that stuff. It's all fine.
First time smoking pot.
Yeah.
I got a DUI.
Dang, that must have been some fire. Oh my God. To the cosmos straight away. First time.
Blast off. So it's a long story. It was actually, I was actually hanging out with some friends on the Native American reservation.
Okay. But it probably wasn't their influence, y'all. They were probably good, wholesome people.
No, but they were the one that supplied it.
Oh my goodness. Yes,
but no, it was a weird thing when the police showed up and they told us to leave, and I left, and then they pulled me over, and I got charged with a DUI.
And you hadn't been drinking; you just smoked the devil's lettuce.
This is 1 hour into. This is not even that. Half an hour into me smoking pot for the first time.
Oh my goodness!
And I am being arrested.
Oh my goodness!
Can you imagine? And anyway,
did you have any on you, or was it okay? No, so none on you. You just had.
I admitted to it.
You told them.
That's the thing. And here's the deal.
Oh, you're not supposed to do that, James.
Here's the deal. That stopped me from moving to New York. This was right before my senior year was complete in high school, and I was going to. It stopped me from moving to New York because I had to go to court, and I thought I was gonna have to pay all this money and lose my license, and it was just like a big cloud over my head. And this is so funny though, because I decided not to move to New York, and I enrolled in a local college, and then I was going to court to take care of this DWI, and I feel like throughout my life, I've had guardian angels that will step in and just like out of nowhere, help me. And I went to court. I pled guilty for the DUI and I left the courtroom, and a random woman approaches me and she goes, I couldn't help but overhear your case. She's like, they don't really have a lot on you. You could probably get out of this. And I'm like, I just pled guilty. And she's like, let me go talk to the judge.
What?
She went, talked to the judge. She came back and she's like, you'll hear back from us. And I went about my...
Who was this lady?
I still don't know. She had nothing to do with my case.
It's like a spiritual...
That's what I'm saying.
Came in and said, let me go talk to the judge?
Yeah. I got a
You'd
call.
already pleaded guilty?
Correct. I got a call like 2 weeks later and they dropped all the charges.
You pled guilty?
Correct.
And then some lady comes up and says like, hey, I looked at your case. This is silly. I'm going to go talk to the judge.
Correct.
And then you got a call later and everything
They dropped all the charges.
What?
Correct. Yeah. So I'm saying guardian angel.
You never ran this lady down and sent her like a fruit basket or something?
No, never got her name.
Oh my God. What a magical thing.
Right. So anyway, that's why I did not move to New York right after college or right after high school. And I ended up briefly going to a community college, but I was at that point, I just wanted to make art and write. And I had no interest in sitting in this school sitting in these classes that I didn't care about. So I made it a semester and I dropped out. And then I did move to New York.
Yeah. Were you like the other people in that community? Were there a lot of other folks doing poetry and art and kind of living that sort of life?
Well, generally no, but you always find your people. I feel at least I did, there's always be a few friends here and there. I'd always find, my people, even though we were the minority. I always found, some buddies to, that could shared taste in music, shared taste in literature.
You found folks that like Cisco.
Well, everyone let's not. Listen,
I'm teasing
the
you a
Cisco
little
was
bit.
that was not because I loved the song. I was saying
you were appealing to the masses.
I was like, what are these kids gonna like the most? That's why I chose that. It wasn't for me. It was for.
I'm just goofing.
I was optimizing for popularity.
It was market penetration.
I was running for president.
You were running for president. So you go. What did you study at the community college? What happens to you there?
Oh God! I mean, it was a semester. The only class I finished was the poetry class. I stopped going to all the rest of them. I couldn't do it. It was like stifling my soul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When did you have your first romantic experience? How old were you?
Well, how romantic. I mean, speaking of the Candy Cane Skate Center.
Okay.
That was my first kiss was at the Candy Cane Skate Center.
Oh my God.
This is a formative place in Redwood Falls in the 90s.
You got your first kiss at Candy Cane Lane.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You still connect with them?
No.
You don't?
With that person? No.
Yeah.
No.
When would you have like your first like crushy crush like relationship type of experience?
First girlfriend was high school junior year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was it impactful for you?
Yeah, she ended up being a long-term girlfriend.
Really?
We were off and on together for many years.
Do you have some of that poetry? She got some poems.
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure she did.
Does she have them, you think?
I don't know what
she's going to wish she did.
No, I'm sure she... Who knows what people save, Some people save things from the past, and sometimes you have to let it go so you can move on.
Yeah, you burn it at a fire.
Yeah, either way.
The death, yeah.
Yeah,
death
so hopefully
part.
she burned it just so she could move on with a clean slate.
Yeah. Yeah, so how do you find your way to New York? You go to a community college, you take a poetry class, you probably sworn off marijuana at that point.
Well, it's it's funny. Getting to New York took a few false starts because, my girlfriend in high school, Erin, she moved to Syracuse for college. She went to Syracuse University.
That's closer.
Yeah. And I was just bumming around, painting, writing in these towns in Minnesota. And I thought, I need to get out of here.
When you say bumming around, what do you mean?
Just working odd jobs.
Crashing on couches or something?
No, I had a place to live, but I was just working
Odd
random jobs.
You were kind of
doing art.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I was still like 19.
Right.
And then I moved to Syracuse because she was there, and just to get out of Minnesota. So that was that was my first time moving out of Minnesota.
Yeah.
I think I was 20 years old and moved to Syracuse, which Syracuse is a college town. And if you're like 20 years old living there and you're not going to college, I don't know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. So I had nothing going for me there.
What kind of odd jobs did you work?
Oh, goodness. I mean, my first job was in a cornfield in Minnesota.
No way. What did you do?
It's called corn detasseler. So you're pulling tassels off the top of the corn stalks.
Okay. That sounds hard, like hard work.
It's not too hard. That's where I met my first girlfriend, actually. We were going down the aisles together, pulling off corn, talking for hours and hours and hours.
What?
Yeah. But no, I worked at a pool hall. Mm-hmm. I worked at grocery stores. I worked at gas stations. I worked at Walmart. Mm-hmm. I worked at, I did some landscaping. I even followed in my mother's footsteps. And even while I was in high school, I had a job where I was taking care of mentally disabled people.
Really? Mm-hmm. That had to have an impact on you.
Yeah. I mean, I think you learn some patience, being a caretaker, especially when you're in high school.
Yeah.
So I've had a lot of odd jobs. I worked at, Minnesota has this big mall called the Mall of America. Mm-hmm. And there's a big amusement park in the mall, like roller coasters and all kinds of stuff.
In the middle of the mall. Okay.
Yeah. It's now called Nickelodeon Universe. At the time it was called Camp Snoopy. I worked as a ride operator at Camp Snoopy.
My God. You were like taking tickets and putting belts on people.
I worked at vintage clothing stores.
What did you do when you settled in Syracuse? You weren't a student?
I worked overnight shifts at Target, stocking shelves.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You were close to New York City though.
I was, and then I could visit.
You would go visit at that time?
I visited a couple times.
Did you have friends there, or were you just
No, I had friends that visited me from Minnesota, and then
y'all would go together.
Went to New York together.
What were those excursions like?
That was just great. That was just really eye-opening, just seeing New York for the first time.
What did y'all do?
Oh, just whatever. Bum around, drink, look around. I mean, when you're in New York for the first time and you're like 21, it's just like you just walk down the street and you're going to be entertained.
Heck yeah.
So we didn't do anything too crazy, but just being there, just seeing it, being exposed to it as this kid from small town Minnesota, it was special.
And you did that like stoke this drive or this fire to live there?
Yeah, I always wanted to, but it also seemed so big. It seemed kind of impossible to live there. Mm-hmm. Like it's a different world. Mm-hmm. But then in Syracuse, it was really a dead end year for me because, and then my girlfriend ended up studying abroad. So she was in Germany and I was just alone in Syracuse working overnight shifts at Target. And then I would come back home and start drinking beer at 8 a.m.
Oh my God.
Because for me, that's night.
Yeah, it's nighttime.
And I was making art and I was painting and I was writing but I wasn't, I didn't have any direction. So I finally decided, okay, I need to get my life more on track before too many years go by.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, okay, I need to go to school, but I'm going to go to art school.
Art school.
So I'm like, I need to be closer to community. So I'm like, I'm going to, at this time, some of my friends from Minnesota and Redwood Falls were living in Minneapolis, St. Paul, Twin Cities.
Yeah.
So I Googled Minneapolis Art College, applied at the first one that I found. Yes. I packed up my car with all my
from
stuff. Syracuse.
You took one step back
and drove straight shot to Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Started living with friends and started going to art college.
Yeah, you went to art college. The first one you could find.
The first one I found, I applied to and went to.
Yeah, all you search engine optimization folks out there, it works.
Probably clicked on the ad.
Yeah. Yeah. What was that like?
It was great. Design school was great because now I'm being creative, but I'm learning to do it with
intention and thoughtfulness.
Correct.
And some kind of like structure.
That's what I was missing at the time. So it allowed me to be an artist with structure and parameters, and to be surrounded by other art kids.
Yeah.
So
yeah, to have a concentration of creative minds and folks that were
absolutely
really wanting to be expressive.
Absolutely. So that was great. You know, I was there for, graduated in 3 years with a bachelor's, and studied graphic design.
That's fast. 3 years?
Yeah, there was no summers off, so there was just kind of, you go all the way through.
Yeah.
And you're very much a trade type of school, so I was learning the trade of graphic design.
Okay. Graphic design, meaning you were on a computer making, what was it like? What was it? That
logos, posters, packaging, magazine layouts, websites.
Did you like that work?
Yeah.
You did.
I like typography, learning about typography and color theory. And, you know, I'd done a lot of painting, but I was really learning digital art, computer software. And got really into it.
You got really into it. And you were still doing poetry at this time?
Probably less so, you know, because I was pretty busy with, you know, my whole life. It's funny, I've kind of fluctuated between writing and visual arts. And at certain times in my life, I've been more of a writer, and then I've been more of a designer / artist. So that was definitely a period where I was
visual arts,
you know, graphic design, because I was training to be a professional. So that really became my main creative outlet.
We're about to get to New York, aren't we? We're about to get there, aren't we? Are we about to get there?
Well, I moved to New York City after college. I started working as a graphic designer in Minneapolis.
Okay.
Minneapolis has a rather robust ad agency scene.
Okay.
So I got, I got my foot in the door.
We're not there yet.
As a graphic. We can fast forward.
No, I don't want to fast forward.
I know. I spent a couple years as a graphic designer in Minneapolis.
You had to cut your teeth.
Then I got tired of graphic design and I switched to brand strategy. So like graphic design got me into the ad agency world. So I felt like it was like me being an artist, and then learning graphic design, it's like I snuck into the business world through the back door as a creative. But then once I was in, I could look around and like see what else I could do.
Yes.
And I realized that as a designer, you're like the end of the workflow. Like there's all these ideas and decisions that are made, and then the designer is there to make it look pretty at the very end. And I was more interested in ideating the concepts and strategy that are more, more central to the whatever project it is. So then I learned about this role of a strategist and a brand strategist, and I pivoted my career and ended up becoming a brand strategist, first in Minneapolis, and then
what was it like? So part of the things I explore is transformation.
Yes.
And we've kind of gone through a couple of them.
Yeah.
There's this like wayward soul working at, pool halls and different places. And then you're like, man, I got to do something.
Yeah.
I got to make a move. I need structure.
Yeah.
And so then you're like a hardcore graphic designer.
Yeah.
And that takes you to a role, and then you're in that role and you redefine yourself again as this brand strategist.
That's right.
What was that redefinition like?
Well, as with so many transitions in my life and in others, sometimes it takes a failure to catalyze that transformation.
Yes.
The death before the rebirth.
Yes.
So I was fired from a job that I had as a graphic designer, and I found myself in a position where my only career experience was in graphic design, but that was something I no longer wanted to do. So I'm like, oh man, I need a job, but I'm also trying to pivot my career. And this is a tricky place to be. And I just put together enough ideas and put together a portfolio. What I did was I really looked at my design work, but through a new lens. I was like, what did I do in this project that was how can I talk about my work experience in a way that is more strategic and conceptual rather than focusing on the end result of the design? So I really just looked back at my own experience and started talking about it in a new way. And that was enough to get my foot in the door as a brand strategist with, and leveraging the experience I had as a designer for a new profession. So that was like a whole new thing to jump into. And suddenly I'm still working in advertising, but now I'm working as a strategist and I'm helping problem solve in a bigger way. And, one foot at a time, I got the hang of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it gets us, did your life change a lot in this new kind of, for some reason in my mind, I think graphic designers, that creative place, they're all playing around with colored pencils and maybe like cutting stuff out and making montages. And then you're back there with cigarettes and then more business suity type of thing. And is that true? Was there this differentiation between the creatives and the kind of business strategists or marketing strategists?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, it's all one team. Like in advertising, there's different roles, but like you're all still in the same meetings. Yeah. You're exposed to a lot of other disciplines. So, and I feel like being a brand strategist is sort of like it's adjacent to the creative teams. There's sales teams, there's an account team, there's tech teams. And I feel like the strategist role in my case, it's often the liaison between the account team and the clients and the creatives. Okay. So it is kind of a bridge. You're really helping to bridge the client needs with the creative execution.
What can we do and what do they need? How are we going to translate?
It's the big picture thinking that ends up fueling the design. So I'm still working with the design team.
That's like Mad Men. It's the guy who's pitching to
a little bit.
Pitching to the client.
Yep. So I was, and it still is creative, and it was, but what I was doing now is creating presentation decks. So I'm like working in my new design tools is PowerPoint, and I'm making all these decks that will like pitch an idea, right, and communicate a vision.
Heck yeah!
So I was still doing visual work, but it was combining my visual work, making the deck, with my conceptual work and the writing, and I'm doing brand messaging, and I'm doing more writing now because part of my job would be like even like naming, like there'd be a company that needs a name or a product that needs a name, and I'm like in charge of naming and taglines and brand messaging.
Heck yeah.
So I'm actually tapping more into my writing again.
Yeah.
So, it is adjacent to the creative team.
Are you still doing that now?
Well,
I mean, I could see you doing that in your meme stuff. That's all, that's all writing, creative writing, and also
I do it from time to time. I work with individual clients, but I don't do it for businesses so much.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you start crushing it in Minneapolis in this new role.
Yes.
And how where did the fire to get back to New York? Was it always there, or did it spring anew?
It would come and go. I still wanted to be there because at this time I had she's on my ex now, but my first girlfriend, but she was in New York City now. And
she went from Syracuse to New York City.
Yes, because she was a theater kid. Because Syracuse is a big theater school.
Okay,
so all the theater kids
go to New York City. Heck yeah,
end up in New York City.
That's right.
So I'm seeing her in Brooklyn, having fun. I'm seeing like the Brooklyn hipster scene of the late 2010s, or the late 2020, 2007, 2008, 2009. There was this like indie rock Brooklyn hipster scene that I was seeing unfold.
You wanted to be a part of it.
A little bit of FOMO.
Yeah.
A lot of good music there. So I still wanted to go. And what happened was I had another girlfriend now. Oh. And she was applying to law schools, and she got into a New York law school.
Oh yeah.
So we were going to move to New York together.
Nice.
And then this is actually my only like time where like getting my heart broken.
Aww.
Where she like took a trip to like Central America and then broke up with me in an email from Central America.
No way.
Yeah.
Before y'all went to New York City?
Yeah.
So first time you were thwarted by smoking the devil's lettuce, and then this time the person that you were going to go there with, an email from Central America?
Yeah.
What country was she in?
I don't remember.
Oh my God.
This is so long ago.
I'm thinking it's Bolivia, just because they killed Che Guevara and they also killed
my dreams.
Your dreams.
No, it was great. You know, a lot of things are sad in the moment when they happen, but then you look back and you're like, I would not have wanted it to not be that way. Cause like, I wouldn't want to still be with that person. And you know what I mean? So
you didn't see it coming though.
A lot of things are hurtful in the moment that end up being exactly what you needed.
That's true.
Without you realizing it at the time, whether it's getting fired, getting broken up with, whatever it is, so many times our dark moments we can't even see it, but they really are moments of transformation.
Death card.
Absolutely. So, but I'd already committed to going with her and I decided I was going to go anyway. So I followed through on the plans that I had, and quit my job and just took a leap of faith and just bought a one-way ticket.
No way.
And
that's death card, baby. You said I'm going. Transformation.
Just you just buy that one-way ticket and there's no looking back.
No looking back.
Yeah. And when I didn't have much money, the only reason I could do it, my ex-girlfriend, the Syracuse girl who was in, she had
a couch.
Now she was getting married, right? She was out getting married and she was on her honeymoon. She's like, listen, no one's going to be staying there. So she let me crash at her place while she was getting married and on her honeymoon. So I had that first month to figure it out.
Oh my God.
So she hooked me up.
She comes back into the story.
Oh yeah.
With a tremendous resource.
For sure. Yeah. She was a huge help.
And you didn't squander that month.
Well,
what did you do? You find a job? You get
No, I did
strategy?
not find a job that month. I did not find a job that month.
What did you do?
I applied for a lot of jobs.
Yeah, you did.
I quickly realized, New York is a different animal. Mm-hmm. So I had, I thought I had some pretty good job experience.
Yes.
But
in Minnesota.
In Minnesota. They're literally like, we've never heard of these places. Yeah. And I'm like, they're good places.
Like, you've never heard of Dairy King, guys?
Shout out Dairy King.
Yeah.
No. I struggled to get a job when I first moved to New York.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm applying, I'm hustling, I'm going to all these places and no one's hiring me. And then a month later, she's coming back. I need to go someplace.
Mm-hmm. So she's kicking you out of there.
I literally was like, wait a minute. I need to be out of here tomorrow. Like it was like that last minute.
No way.
And I went on Facebook and I'm like, does anyone in New York have a place I can stay? And this guy I knew, he was in a band. His band was going on tour.
Sweet.
The next day.
They needed a roadie.
He's like, no, he's like, you can stay in my room. I'm going to be on tour.
Nice.
So I go, and this is in Bushwick, and it is it's a Brooklyn band house if there ever was one. I mean, this bedroom I was staying in, there was so much trash and junk on the floor. It was a band house. You couldn't see the floor.
This wasn't a woman going on her honeymoon house.
No, you couldn't see the floor.
Oh my God.
Because of all the crap.
But the universe was conspiring to bring your dreams into fruition. It was conspiring for you.
Correct.
It was probably giving you a little less accommodating digs because it needed you to get some.
It makes for a better story.
Yeah. So this band house you couldn't see the floor.
No.
It was in Bushwick.
There was like tires in there. There was just like,
I'm sorry.
There was like a whole seat from the back of a van because I guess they had to
because they took
equipment in the van. So there's the whole seat of the van full of crap. Anyway, so and then there's the band's coming back soon, so I need to be out. And then there was suddenly there was like this talk around New York about this big storm coming.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, a storm is going to come. Okay, big deal. There's going to be some rain, whatever. Well, this turned out to be a hurricane. And this was, as far as I know, the first and only hurricane to like hit New York.
Whoa.
Ever.
Yeah.
So this is 2012, Hurricane Sandy. And, oh no. So I did find an apartment. Me and my friend signed a lease for this apartment that was in this little island at the bottom of Queens called Broad Channel. It's the last stop on the subway line, far out.
You found your place.
It's like far, but it's like on the water. It's like a beach house in New York City. It's like, this sounds like a cool find, right? Yeah. So I was going to move in there in a couple days. And then Hurricane Sandy came along, and literally Hurricane Sandy, I mean, hit New York way harder than anyone expected, and the apartment that I was going to live in was destroyed.
Oh my God. Because it's on the water.
It's on the water.
Yeah, it's like right there. First.
Exactly. So I was not able to move there.
Oh my God. First the devil's lettuce, then the email from, we're calling it Bolivia.
Yeah.
And now Hurricane Sandy.
Correct. So I had to be out of this house, but then my apartment
was devastated.
Was underwater.
What?
So I had nowhere to go. So I was basically homeless, and my friend who I was going to live with at this place, you know, he was now homeless too. So he's like, we didn't know where to go. I didn't have a job. I didn't have much money.
Did you have a car to sleep in?
No, because I sold my car before going to New York.
Yeah,
so I didn't want a car in New York.
Right.
So he's like, listen, I have a friend who has this empty cottage in this little island in the Caribbean called Culebra. He's like, we could go just like crash there for a while until things settle down.
What?
So we like spent the last of our money to get these like one-way plane tickets to Puerto Rico. And then we transferred to these little rinky-dink 2-passenger plane that took us to this little island called Culebra.
Mm-hmm.
And then I proceeded to have a nervous breakdown on this island.
Oh my God. For some reason, Hunter S. Thompson and the Rum Diaries come to mind, just being in a...
Cool. I haven't read that, but I know of it.
So oh my God. So you left New York, you're on some crazy isolated island.
Homeless on this little...
And you're freaking out.
Island in the Caribbean. Yeah, I felt disappointed. I felt like a failure.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this felt like the biggest failure.
Had poetry creep back into your life yet? Where were you with regard to your muse, your creativity?
I think I'm writing like blogs now. I'm like blogging.
You're sharing your experience through blog.
I'm writing. Yeah, I had a blog about branding that became more and more about inner transformation and spirituality. Mm-hmm. So, and then I was compiling some of these blog posts into like little ebooks. Okay. So I was kind of like making these little ebooks that were like a collection of my blog posts.
Nice.
Yeah. So I was still writing, but it was more, you know, it was not nonfiction, musings.
Okay.
So I'm blogging now.
Nice.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm just like, I'm on this island and I feel like a complete failure. It's like, I keep trying to move to New York and I keep getting thwarted.
You didn't understand how the universe was conspiring to help you because it was not clear.
I started to disbelieve that was happening.
Yeah.
I was like, no, the universe is not conspiring. Like,
they do not want me to be in New York.
Right. But it was really funny. Like, I had nothing else. This is a little island. There's nothing to do here. So I would just sit at the beach every day and just watch the tide come in and out. And just
you're meditating,
be in contemplation. Yeah. And it ended up being like a prolonged state of meditation.
Yeah.
And my friend who I was with, Jake, he told me to instead of being like afraid of the uncertainty of the moment, to really lean into it and to really like not shy away from the uncertainty, but to really lean into it and to find a way to trust the uncertainty of that moment. Mm-hmm. So I would just sit at this on the beach and just try to lean into the uncertainty and find a way to trust it. and the ocean tide is coming in and out, and I just hear my ego going crazy, like, oh, how am I going to get a job? How am I going to get to New York City? You know, blah, blah, blah. But the longer I sat with that, in that state of meditation, the more I realized that, like, oh, this is just chatter of my ego. This isn't, just because I think something doesn't make it true. And I kind of started to realize that, like, oh, the ego is not me. And the longer I sat there in silence, in stillness, I started to really hear the voice of my intuition. And like, oh, maybe this is all happening for a reason.
The beach was your Bodhi tree.
Yeah. It's like, maybe this is happening for a reason. Maybe this is a necessary stepping stone to get me where I'm going. Yeah. And I started to really think about, so we have these voices inside of our heads. There's the ego, and then there's our intuition. And they're kind of always speaking to us. And it's up to us which one we listen to. And then I was like, oh man, there would be that'd be a great book idea. And I immediately had this idea for a book, and it was called Shit Your Ego Says. And I was like, wow, this is a good idea. And I'd wanted to write books before, but this was the first one where it seemed very clear that this was a book that I was going to write and that I was going to publish.
Yeah.
And then I realized, all of this is happening for a reason, because that is a book that I ended up writing and publishing. And it required all this happening, and it required me being homeless on this island to reach that point of surrender where that book idea came through. And then that really changed things, because that really launched my career as an author. Yeah.
The question that came up for me is, and when I sit in contemplation, when I meditate, there's definitely thoughts that come. I never thought about dividing them into inspiration and then ego. And then, so the natural thought for me, the question for me is like, how do you sort which one is inspiration and which one is ego?
Yeah. Well, the ego tends to, it's mental. It is strictly, it's a mental construct. It's a mental abstraction. It's just thoughts. And there tend to be, the ego wants to protect you. So the ego is kind of looking for threats, and it's on the defensive. And so much of our society is caught up in this mental activity, and everything, like even when you look at the economy, everything is built on mental abstractions. Like most of the economy, it's based on, dividends and, the stock market. And then there's all these layers of it that are just layers and upon layers of mental abstractions that are disconnected from anything real. Yeah. So the whole world is like this ego mental abstraction. And intuition for me, it can be a thought, but I think it's more of a feeling. It's more of a sensation that you feel, and kind of, it's a knowing. So it's more of an inner knowing than it is like mental chatter. Yeah. So that's what I would say. I was like, the ego is mental chatter, and the intuition is an inner knowing. So just tuning into the body is how you can connect with the intuition.
Yeah. Did you go from that island back? Did you go to New York after that island?
I did.
Did you find a place to live?
Yeah, I crashed with a friend.
Did you find your own place?
Then I found the cheapest place in Crown Heights, in this little room in this Irish woman's apartment, and ended up freelancing, getting some freelance gigs,
doing the market strategy stuff.
Yeah, doing some strategy stuff and some maybe a little design stuff too, and then found a full-time job as a creative strategist in Manhattan on Madison Avenue.
What?
Yep.
That sounds like a good get.
Well, it got me grounded and situated, and allowed me to stay in New York for 8 years.
Whoa. So I imagine in those 8 years, you had the support of this good job on Madison Avenue, and then you also had this book. You had written the book?
Well, I wrote it. I started writing it right away.
This was when you got back to New York. You started writing it while you were working this job.
Yeah. But it took, that happened in 2012, and the book didn't come out until 2017.
Okay.
But there was a lot of writing and, finding publishers and things. So that, the whole time I was working on the book in some form.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. When did you, wow.
Yeah.
And then, so that changed your life, publishing the book.
Yeah. I mean, that was a whole other, blessing, was getting that book published, because, typically to get a book published, you're supposed to have like an audience. Like you're supposed to be like an expert at something, and then build credibility around it, and build like an audience and a reputation around it. Mm-hmm. And then finally you can publish a book on the topic. Yeah. But I was going about it all backwards. I was starting with the book because I didn't have any public reputation or credibility or expertise,
right,
so, to speak of. I was just a writer. So I was coming at it with the book first, which isn't the way the publishing industry typically works. But I knew I needed to write the book. I knew that I needed it to come out of me. Mm-hmm. And I remember I made like a bargain with the universe. I'm like, listen, I need to write the book. I can't write the book and figure out how to get this out there. So I'm like, I'm going to write the book. You need to find a way for this to get out into the world.
Dude, I feel that. That's what I'm on now.
Yeah.
You just got to do it. If you build it, they will come. If you build it, they will come.
Yeah. And and then I eventually decided just to pitch it. So I start looking up every email I could find for any agent, any editor, any publisher, and I was sending it to everybody. And I didn't hear back from anyone. I didn't even get rejected. I just didn't hear back from
Worse than rejected is like just not even acknowledged.
Right.
You would have wished for a rejection. Oh my goodness.
But then I had this proposal that I made. And then my friend Jake, who I had been on the island with, mm-hmm. I sent him the proposal just to show him as a friend, get his feedback. And then without telling me, he had this other friend that was pitching a book to this publisher called Hay House, and they have a UK office, and he was working with this UK writer, and they were pitching this book to this UK branch of Hay House. And he's like, well, I'm talking to these people about this book. He's like, I might as well send them James's proposal. So without telling me, he sent them my proposal.
What?
Yeah.
It's the lady in the courthouse.
Just pass it along. Exactly. Yeah. And then they got it and they loved it. So they sent it to the New York office of Hay House. So then out of nowhere, I'm just chilling.
You get a call.
I get an email.
We
and
dropped the case.
They're like, yo, this is Hay House. Yeah. We got your proposal. We would love for you to come in for a meeting.
Yes.
And I'm like, what? Because this is a pretty big publisher.
Yeah.
And I was getting rejected by everyone. And suddenly this big publisher was inviting me in for a meeting.
Yeah, we dig your stuff.
Right. So I go into Hay House in New York and met with them. And they say, she literally said, this is the best proposal I've ever seen.
What?
That's what she said. She's like, you're a real writer. I'm like, yeah, what do you, she's like, yeah, well, most of our authors aren't like real writers. There's like a self-help thing.
Okay.
So I was like just a better writer.
Yeah.
And they liked that. She's like, the problem is you don't have an audience. You don't have a marketing platform, they called it. She's like, if you had an audience, we would publish this tomorrow.
Right.
But you don't have an audience. So she's like, give me some tips on how to grow my audience. And she's like, so this is like kind of on hold until then. And then the next day or a couple days later, she emails me and she's like, listen, we have this conference coming up in Chicago. And it's this, it's kind of like a conference for aspiring writers. And at the end of this conference, someone will be awarded a book deal. And this is like a $5,000 conference to attend. Oh my and she's God. Like, we're going to send you there.
Nice.
So she hooked me up, sent me to this conference, after which I submitted my proposal, and won.
You won?
And won. So, yes. So that's how I got my first book deal.
Without an audience.
Without an audience.
Well, you probably had an audience after that because you had accolades. You had something to kind of
a little bit.
Yeah.
It was small at first, but it's publishing the book was what helped me grow it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
What a story.
Yeah.
And then what happened after publishing it? How was the growth or the adoption of it?
That book did not do super well because again, I didn't have an audience. I didn't know how to market a book,
Yeah.
So like, I'm like, even now I'm like seeing all these people on these book tours and I'm just like, I didn't know how to do a book tour. I never even I did some podcasts. I did a couple public speaking events, but I was just really getting my feet wet.
You were learning.
Yeah. It gave me some exposure to, stand up in front of an audience, to be a guest on a podcast. Like my first times doing podcasts, I was like so nervous. I had all these pages of notes and I was just like so not present.
Oh,
but since then I've done God knows how many podcasts.
Yeah.
So now it's just like so easy. I'm
chill.
so comfortable.
Yeah.
But I was not at first. I was a wreck. And I was probably coming off as nervous and, so I was, it's like jumping in before you're ready, but then that's how you get ready. It's by trial by fire.
The fool's journey starts with that first step.
Totally.
Yeah.
So it was awkward at first, but it gave me the experience I needed to, learn how to stand on my own 2 feet as an author and speaker and thought leader type person.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. We're coming to where we'll land the ship here pretty soon. And I want to know about like kind of latest James.
Yeah.
And where you're at now and what you're excited about with the future and what you're kind of working on. I'd like to know more about that.
Yeah. Well, I really, during 2020, we left New York and moved to California, and
you said
me and my girlfriend,
new girlfriend.
now wife.
Oh, okay. Congratulations.
Thank you. And during the pandemic, that's when I really started to tap back into poetry.
Mm-hmm.
And I also started making memes.
Okay.
So, a lot of people today know me for my memes because you make these memes for the internet and then it turns out that they can go viral. So I learned, I took the internet meme and I used it as a platform for my own writing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what does poetry or spiritual insight or philosophy look like expressed through the channel of the internet meme?
Mm-hmm.
So I started to play around with that as like a sandbox for my own creative expression.
Yeah.
And my second book is a collection of poetry and memes.
Nice.
It's called How to Laugh in Ironic Amusement During Your Existential Crisis.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm making memes, I'm writing. My third book is called The Art of You, the essential guidebook for reclaiming your creativity.
Nice.
So what I'm doing now is really, we just spoke a lot about my own creative journey and all the different, forms that's taken, from poetry to painting to graphic design to brand strategy to writing books to making memes and making social media content. I have all these different, a long track record now of like my own creative journey.
Yeah.
So with The Art of You, it's a way for me to really teach the lessons I've learned and to really teach the art of creativity and help people find that inner creative spark within themselves. Because I think that everyone's an artist. The form of our art is different for everyone, but I think that the creative spirit is alive within us all. Because when you think about what is the human body, you know, what is this life force that's animating the human body?
Yeah.
You know, this is very,
We have a vehicle, but what is actually here?
What is the life force?
Enlivening this vehicle?
there is a, you know, that's why I'm like, people talk about spirituality, and I'm like, well, I don't know. Some people consider themselves to be spiritual, and I'm like, we are all equally spiritual because we all are animated by a spirit. Mm-hmm. Like, that's all it means. We're all spiritual by nature. We are all spirits inhabiting a body. And that spirit is an extension of the creative life force of the universe.
Yeah.
You know, you see it outside. It's the same life force that's animating the trees outside. You know, it moves through us. So we are living embodiments of source creation. So that's, and creativity for me is learning to harness that.
Yeah.
And to let it move through you, and to bring your imagination to life in whatever form that takes.
Yeah.
So I'm really settling into a role as a teacher of creativity.
Yeah.
And really to I think the world needs creativity now more than ever.
Heck yeah.
Because like, you look at the world today, and it seems like a dead end in so many ways. If you look at the politics, the economy, everything is in a state of atrophy and decay. And I think we need a rebirth. We need a renaissance, which is the French word for rebirth. And I think we all have that capacity to do it. We need new solutions. We need new ideas. We need that new creative energy.
Yeah.
And so I think that waking up the inner artist and learning to, I think, moving from survival mode to creation mode. And I think just having a creative practice is helps us live in creation mode. Yeah. And if we all do that, and we all stop following the outdated rules of society, but instead, you know, learn to nurture our own inner purpose and bring it to life through the power of our own creativity, I feel like that's how we can change the world and bring new solutions to the world. So what I'm trying to do with my own art, my own writing, is just to plant seeds. Yeah. And I think for everyone, I think we're all in a position to plant seeds and nurture those seeds so they can grow into a better world. And it only takes, you know, a few seeds to grow a garden. Yeah. So I just planting seeds and sparking a new renaissance is what I hope to do with my work.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I feel enlivened hearing that. And I'm reminded of the failures we kind of that grounded or the intention of this, and the seeds harken back to cultivation.
Yes.
To cultivate.
Absolutely.
And the inertia behind creativity being this intuition. Yeah. So cultivating intuition, it seems like, is all wrapped up in everything you're speaking about. This like origin story of expression.
Yes. And I think intuition and creativity, they are portals to bring heaven to earth, because intuition is a voice that comes from another dimension. You know, ideas come from another dimension. We tap into them with our imagination. They're not real, but we tap into them, and that becomes a portal for us to make something real. And then, so we become vessels to bring this unseen world, make it manifest in the world. So I think intuition is the portal that gives us that channel, and then creativity is the method in which it's built.
Yes. I love that. Would you take us out with one of your poems?
Yes.
I would love that. James, you're the longest interview I've ever had, and I feel like it's been moments. I could continue talking to you.
This has been the longest podcast I've done, I think.
We're at about 2 hours and 5 minutes, okay. and I feel like I've only begun to scratch the surface of James McCrae.
All right. So this is a poem that really speaks to the earlier part of this conversation about growing up religious and sort of leaving that, but retaining that connection to God. So this is called I Went Looking for God. I felt claustrophobic inside the stuffy walls of church. So I stepped outside into the open air to look for God. I went to every holy place and studied every sacred scripture. I saw ornate monuments carved in stone and ecstatic visions typed on aging paper. But God wasn't found in architecture or books. I traveled to distant lands and met a holy man who promised to show me God. We chopped wood, carried water, and sat alone in silent ceremony as the sun sank into the snowy mountains. But we were too far away, it seemed, for God to find us, quarantined in our sacred solitude. I went back to the busy city and lost myself in pleasure. I danced with singers and unwrapped the bodies of exotic women. We laughed and drank and sang, and for a fleeting moment held eternity inside our hands. But in the morning my head was throbbing in pain, and the women and music and God were nowhere to be found. I voyaged deep into the jungle to drink strange brew with medicine men. The skies parted and God appeared in fractal form, permeating every inch of light and shadow. I marveled in amazement at the mystery before vomiting into a bucket while God just laughed and disappeared. I met a Los Angeles gypsy who read my aura and said my palms were ominous. She spun me in circles while chanting Aquarian incantations and told me to choose a tarot card. I pulled the fool, then gave her my money and left more confused than I was before. I stumbled alone into a moonlit cemetery to ponder the mossy graves. These old souls must know God, I thought, but they're not talking. Ready to give up my search, I looked in the local library to see what studies I might find. I'm looking for God, I told the librarian. God is in the alphabet, she said. G-O-D. One word, 3 letters. Words are merely symbols. They are not real. And I realized that looking for a thing called God is like looking for a theoretical finger pointing toward an idea of the sky.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah, I think of, for some reason, it brings me that, I get chills. It's so beautiful. And how you speak about the tarot and all that, and it's so poignant. And the end just has me thinking about that finger pointing at the moon, that whole idea.
Right.
And folks looking at the finger.
Right.
It's like turn towards the unknown,
right?
The mystery.
Right. We get hung up on words, like the word God. Like people argue over, is there a God? Is there not a God? And they're fixated on the word.
Instead of filling themselves with the Holy Spirit or this intuition, letting it come. There's something about the vessel needing to be empty to be filled with that inspiration.
Yeah.
This comes. Yeah, man. Goodness. James, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I do a lot of podcasts, but this was a forum where I was able to talk a lot about my life in detail in ways that I don't usually get a chance to. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
Holding space for the depth of this conversation.
Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing about your childhood and everything, man. Today we've been sharing with James McCrae. He is an author, teacher, and meme poet. Mm-hmm. And y'all go find him and look at the memes, read the poetry. I know I'm gonna. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You want a handshake?
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you a hug after this.
Sure.
They wouldn't be able to see that. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.